Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 281. Today we are busting some myths about homeschooling neurodivergent kids. I'm sure you've heard all sorts of myths and misconceptions about homeschooling in general, but specifically homeschooling any of your kids who are neurodivergent in any way. Maybe you have a kid who's got anxiety, ADHD, maybe they have some learning challenges like dyslexia or dyscalculia or dysgraphia, or they are gifted, twice exceptional, whatever their challenge is, whatever their quirk is, whatever their special need is. I am sure people have said to you things like, I don't know that you could do this. I want to assure you, first of all, you can. You absolutely can. You're the best teacher for your kid. You're the best parent for your kid, and you can do this homeschooling thing. We are going to take the top 5 myths today. Let's just do the top 5 and bust them with research, with sound truth, and examples. So you're going to love this episode. I, though, would love to hear what other myths I miss. So listen closely, take some notes if you want to, and then reach out. Let me know what myths I missed, what misconceptions there are out there that you would like busted, or other topics that maybe you're feeling a little insecure about and you'd love for me to touch on in an episode. I'd love to share that. I would love to alleviate some of your stresses, and I'd love to just be there for you and help provide the resources that you need. So when you're done listening, I want you to head over to the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast, and I want you to send me a quick voicemail or an email using the widgets that are on that page, the forms at the bottom, so that I can hear what it is that you need and make sure that we are continuing to make this podcast the best resource possible for you. Another quick shout out to CTC Math. Thank you so much for being our continuous sponsor. We appreciate you more than you could ever know. Check them out if you're looking for a math program. They're truly the best. ctcmath.com. All right, pop those earbuds in, go for a walk, grab yourself a snack. Let's get on with today's episode. Hey there, welcome back. This is going to be a good one, and so I hope that you're buckled in and ready to go. And I would also love for you to think about, as we're talking through some of these common misconceptions or myths about why homeschooling just won't work for a neurodivergent kid. I'd love you to think about some of your own misconceptions maybe that you had, some of your own concerns, or the ones that you've heard frequently or even infrequently that I didn't touch on, because we're going to touch on a few of the main ones, the ones that we hear over and over again. But whether you're parenting a gifted child, a twice exceptional kiddo, a kiddo with ADHD, autism, anxiety, learning challenges, whatever, let's be honest, there's usually a nice, beautiful mix of all of these different things with our kids. This episode is going to be for you. We're going to talk about the myths that hold so many parents back from choosing this route, this homeschooling idea, adventure, whatever, or help them continue feeling not confident or hold back their confidence. And we're going to break them down with the truth and with research and real life examples. So this is going to be good. We're going to talk about the real benefits of homeschooling neurodivergent kids, what those are socially, emotionally, and academically, because the truth is there are a lot of benefits for our neurodivergent kids when it comes to homeschooling. We can offer them things that we can't offer them when they're in a classroom with a bunch of other kids. We have the opportunity to go one-on-one. And here's the thing, if you've ever worried that you're not enough or questioned whether you're doing the right thing by homeschooling your differently wired kid, please stay with me. This episode, I hope, will be just a huge hug, a pep talk, and a reminder that you're not alone. Before we dive in, I want to remind you that we're kicking off the Family Connection Challenge inside the Learners Lab in a couple of days. from the time this episode airs, it's going to be about a week and a half. So if you haven't signed up yet, it's completely free for everybody to join. It is a family challenge that we're doing within the community of the Learners Lab. But we have a special space where if you're not members of the lab, you can join in so you can get all the content that's specific to this challenge. The challenge kicks off June 16th, goes for a week, just one little video and task mission. We're going to crack the code on how to deepen your family connection with a fun little detective themed challenge that you and your kids, your whole family can participate in. So just a few minutes each day where you watch a live video, we talk things through, we share wins, you get the new mission for the day, and then hopefully you and your kids embark on the mission. And then the following Monday, we'll meet and we'll celebrate wins. We'll have some great prizes for those of you who are able to join us for the whole thing. And of course, I hope that you'll join the Learners Lab in the process because there's so many other great things that we have to offer. But I promise you the Family Connection Challenge is completely free because I really want you to make a point this summer of connecting on a deeper level with your kids. There's nothing, I've said it before, that can replace the deepened family connection that you can get and you can gain through homeschooling. The challenge is going to be packed with super simple, meaningful activities that bring you closer to your kids so you can get that deepened relationship. It helps you build a foundation of trust, fun, and connection in your homeschool, in your family. And again, you don't have to be a member to join in. Just to hop on over to the show notes. Now, we did have a problem last week. So if you tried to join last week when I mentioned it and you had a problem, you got an error message that has since been fixed. You can go back and you can try again. If there is a problem and you're struggling to find the login page, I don't know why that happened last week. We still can't figure out what the glitch was that made this happen. But if you're having any problems, just email me at support@raisinglifelonglearners.com and we'll give you the direct link to join in. All right, let's get on to the first myth. So many people think, and I believe wrongly, that neurodivergent kids need experts, not parents, to do the bulk of their teaching and learning and support and help them through whatever it is they're dealing with. And the truth is that they just don't. This one gets me every time because there is nobody that knows your kid like you do. Yes, there are times we need to reach out to the experts because we need more support and we're not able to figure out exactly what it is that our kids are struggling with, and we want to help them because what we're doing isn't working. So we reach out to therapists or educators or coaches or facilitators because we need the extra support or the help. But the truth is, the one-on-one education that you can provide along with those supports is the absolute best thing a neurodivergent kid needs or can get because you can tailor everything you do directly to their needs. This one, how many of us have heard you're not qualified to teach your kid? They have special needs. They need a specialized person who's trained in autism or ADHD or giftedness or whatever. I've heard it before. And then on the flip side of that, I've heard a lot of people say to me or say to others like me that, of course, you can do it. You have a background in education. In fact, I was interviewed for a podcast earlier today on the day that I'm recording this one. It's a podcast that's going to be airing soon. So I will link to it in the show notes because it will be airing before this particular episode airs. But the host of the podcast said, I want to talk more about homeschooling to bring it into practicality for people who are a little bit nervous about it. Because of course you have the background, so it's not a problem for you. And I'm like, wait a minute, actually, I think if anything, my education background has hindered me more than it's helped me. If I look back on our homeschooling journey, the majority of the times where we have struggled in our homeschool is when I've let my education get in the way of my kids. Because if we're truly embracing a homeschooling spirit and the perks of homeschooling, and tailoring things to the kids that are in front of us, the classroom mentality of education doesn't work for us. Because the classroom mentality is that you're teaching what you're teaching and you're getting the kids to get to where they need to get based on what you're teaching, instead of looking at the whole child that's in front of you, meeting them where they are and moving them forward. And if we think about it, isn't that the perfect way to teach neurodivergent kids? whether they have a learning challenge like dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia, or they have anxiety or ADHD, or they have autism, or whatever it is that they're struggling with, they can make so much growth if the person who is facilitating their learning meets them where they are so that they can move forward a little bit every single day. I love and respect therapists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, teachers. I've been there. In fact, in the Learners Lab, we have Sarah Collins, who's been on this podcast numerous times, come in once a month to do a Q&A, Ask the OT, with my learners' families. I respect therapists and their expertise so much. They can be amazing supports. They are perfect people to have on your team when you need specialized support. But the truth is, you are the expert on your child. You know their quirks, you know their needs, you know their triggers, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses. You've already been modifying life to help them thrive. Long before homeschooling ever entered the picture, you helped them make the next step. Take their first step, run, ride a bike, climb a tree. You fixed up their boo-boos. You helped them sound out letters and words. You did all of the things. In the Homeschool Advantage, I talk about how homeschooling allows us to create a child-focused, strength-based learning environment. You're not limited to trying to fit your child into someone else's box. You get to build the box that fits them best. Homeschooling can be a healing place, a place where our kids don't have to mask, they don't have to constantly perform, they don't have to be something they're not, and that is powerful. Neurodivergent kids need parents, first and foremost, and parents need to seek out the experts they need to have on their team so that they can best meet the needs of their kids. Okay, misconception number 2. Homeschooled kids won't be socialized. This is not unique to homeschooling neurodivergent kids. This is all around. Everybody thinks this first. And interestingly, you'd think that wouldn't be as big a misconception as it still is, because we've disproven this thought, this myth, time and time again, just by virtue of the fact that homeschoolers are really everywhere now. But it still comes up in conversation. The S word, right? Socialization, that myth is probably the most persistent and the most misunderstood. What people really mean is, will your children learn to get along with others? The answer is yes, of course. In fact, they'll learn to get along with betters in many cases, better than they could in a traditional learning setting, because they are out in the world. The vast majority of homeschoolers aren't home all the time. Parents who are homeschooling their kids today are looking for ways to get them involved in their community, in activities, in co-ops, in classes, in museum experiences, in travel, in whatever it is they're passionate about. And so they're interacting with people all the time, but better, they're interacting with adults and children of all ages. And they can talk to people of all ages. They're not locked into just the kids or just the people who are their same age or their same ability. Neurodivergent kids often struggle in group dynamics because of the sensory overload, the rigid schedules involved in group learning, and fast-paced peer interactions. This can all cause anxiety and dysregulation, and homeschooling allows the social learning to happen in meaningful and developmentally appropriate ways. Your kids can make friends at co-ops if you're involved in co-ops. They can make friends in theater groups, robotics clubs, the library's Lego hour. They can make friends online. We have some really great offerings in the Learners Lab. We have a Lego club every month. Twice a month, we have a facilitated teen meetup and a tween meetup. We have a doodle club every month, and we have been talking with the kids about other clubs that they want to see offered. There's a lot of social opportunity within the lab via Zoom, which is not, and it's not bad. Definitely got a bad rap during the pandemic when everybody was on Zoom. But for neurodivergent kids, finding people that have their same interests, it's not always possible around, and their abilities, it's not always possible to find that in your local community. So having a mix of online and in real life interactions can be really good for neurodivergent kids. It puts the socialization on their terms, which is huge for these kids. In the Homeschool Advantage, I share a story about one of my kiddos who needed one-on-one play dates to build confidence and develop social tools. In homeschool, that was possible. And now they're thriving in larger groups because we respected their pace. We want our kids to know that we've got their back, and whatever it is they need is what we can give them. I had a kiddo who would get overwhelmed in situations often. And so we had code words. I remember, and I've talked about this before on the podcast and in person, I was never going to be that parent who, the things we thought before we had kids, like what a great parent we were before we had kids. I was never going to be that parent who let kids bring devices to things or let people be on phones or tablets or whatever. But then I had kids that sometimes needed the decompression time. And if I had made them stay in the thick of it for the whole several hours we were at like a family gathering or something, it would have just been a mess. It would have been meltdown after meltdown. So having a tablet and a bag with different snacks that evoke different sensations or fidgets or a card game or other things that they could do allowed us to set the pace and give them the accommodations that they needed. Now, as I've said before, we still maintain that our kids need to be contributing members of society, meaning they can't just do what they want when they want because their rights are their rights, but other people's rights are those rights. And so when we're going into somebody else's home for a party or a family gathering, the expectation is that we're joining into the family gathering and we're not like sitting in the midst of it all, tuning everybody out on a screen. So what we would do is our kids would, if one of them needed that time to decompress, we would find a quiet space away from what everybody was doing so they could discreetly take a break, play a couple games, watch a quick show or whatever, or draw or whatever it is they needed. And then they could come back when they were recharged and ready or when they were regulated. And then they could come back. We had code words, we took walks, we did all the things that they needed to do when they needed to do it. Now that my kids are older and I've been homeschooling for over 16 years and my oldest is 22, I just graduated my 17-year-old, I have a 15-year-old and I have a 12-year-old, they're able to handle social situations better than most adults. They are very articulate, they're very poised, they can talk to just about anybody, they shake hands, they meet eyes, and they are really good conversationalists. They have not suffered in their socialization, and I think they are the way they are because we've had the ability to give them more time to develop in those ways. All right, another myth. They won't learn enough or be on grade level, or they'll have gaps and they'll be missing things. Okay, I want you to take a deep breath. I am sure you have thought at times that you weren't going to be able to meet your kids' needs. If they're gifted or twice exceptional, you're probably thinking, I can never keep up. I can't teach them calculus. I can't teach them quantum physics or whatever it is. If they have a learning difference like dyslexia or they struggle cognitively, you may be thinking, I can never get them to catch up. I can never get them to where they need to be. They're never going to be able to graduate. If they are super duper impulsive and are always on the go and don't sit down and focus ever, you could be thinking, I just can't do this. I am not the right person to get them to sit and focus. I need to do something else. This is what keeps our brains cycling at 2 o'clock in the morning again and again. Our brains won't quiet down because we're so afraid of failing. I want to assure you, you are listening to a homeschooling podcast. You are reading about homeschooling online. You are doing everything in your power to become a better parent and a better homeschool mom. You've already won. You've already done the hard work. You're homeschooling your kids. You've made the commitment to do it. And you're continuing your education when it comes to that. You've already got the tools that you need to be successful, and they're not going to miss anything. Even if you're worrying, what if I miss something? What if they miss something? What if they fall behind? I want you to remember that behind is a myth when you're tailoring your child's education to their needs. It's a myth anyway. Every child graduates with gaps. There is no high school in the country that teaches the exact same thing as other high schools, unless they're part of a cohort, which then they're part of a small cohort, and then there's other high schools all around. There are people who move from school to school every year. There are people who take different classes within the same school and don't graduate with the same knowledge every single year. A textbook is considered done when it's about 75% done. In fact, in some cases, it's even less. There's a reason that every year review happens at the beginning of the year in subsequent subjects. Teachers don't expect kids to have gotten everything the year before, nor do they expect them to remember everything with a 3-month break in the middle there. And so your kids are not going to be any different than any other child that graduates, because every child that graduates has a slightly different experience, even if they're in the same school. And many neurodivergent kids are asynchronous. We've talked about asynchrony before. I'll link in the show notes to multiple pages and posts about asynchrony. It means that their learning, their brains, their experience and developmental needs are all over the place. They might read at a college level but struggle to write a full sentence. They might love science but hate math. Homeschooling can embrace that uneven profile. It allows you to teach somebody advanced reading and remedial math all at the same time. Because if you're meeting your child where they are in all the areas that they need to learn, they're going to be progressing every single day. Unlike sometimes what happens in schools when they have these gaps in learning, they just teach to the middle. They teach, even if you have a 3rd grader who's doing 2nd grade math and 9th grade science and history and college level reading, they're still in the 3rd grade classroom. Homeschooling allows you to have them at the high school level of science and history and college level of reading while bringing up their math. So you have the ability to customize their education so they get what they need, and they're going to be learning exactly what it is they need to learn. You can let them accelerate where they soar and support them where they struggle without shame or comparison. You get to meet them where they are. You get to meet them forward. And here's the thing. Research backs this up. Homeschoolers, including neurodivergent ones, perform as well or better than traditionally schooled peers on academic measures when learning is individualized. When we take the opportunity that we have as homeschoolers to meet our kids where they are in all areas academically, socially, and emotionally, they are able to progress at the rate they are designed to progress at, and they perform better when it comes to standardized testing, when it comes to college entrances, all of those things. My daughter chose to apply test optional to all the different schools that she applied to, and she applied to many because she's pursuing a BFA program. She got into every school academically. She had no problems academically getting into schools as a test optional homeschooled student because her essay was strong, her grades were strong, her performance across the board was rigorous. We were able to meet her where she was every single day of her high school. You can too. You're not falling behind. You're paving your own road. Hey there. Okay, you've heard me talk about CTC Math for a long time, and I've been sharing testimonials from other people about it, but I want to share my own right now because it's been a while since I've talked about how we're using CTC Math. CTC is an amazing sponsor. They support our work here at the podcast. They actually sponsor a lot of different homeschool businesses and magazines and events because they're so committed to making sure that the homeschool resources you have at your fingertips are available to you, that you have access to what you need when you need it. I love CTC Math for that part of who they are, but I also love CTC Math as a customer. I have been a paying customer for years and years. My kids are using it in very different ways, and this is what I want to talk about. I've talked before about its adaptability, but let's talk about this. I'm 16 years into homeschooling. This is my 16th year, and our kids are using it very differently. I've got one kiddo who's very advanced in math. That kiddo is a grade level and a half ahead, and I have their level set to mastery at 90%, meaning they have to get 90% or above to move on to the next set of math problems because that child doesn't have to speed through it. They're already a year and a half ahead. And so I want them, if they're going to continue to accelerate, I want them to accelerate with deep understanding. My other kiddo who's currently using it is right on grade level, maybe a couple lessons behind. And so that kiddo's mastery is set at 80% because I don't need that kiddo to understand every single section and get every single problem right. I need that kiddo to understand the big picture of the concepts, get at least a B's level of work done so that they can move on to the next level, because that particular kiddo is probably not going into a mathy career, but they need the basic understanding. CTC allows the flexibility to do that. If you've got a kiddo, say in late elementary school, who is absolutely brilliant in math and can skip ahead to some high school level math, Your subscription includes all the way up to calculus. You don't have to wait. You don't have to buy multiple levels of programs. If you've got a kiddo who you hit a snag and you realize, oh my gosh, we missed that section when we were learning third grade math and now we've got to go back to do it. You don't have to go out and buy a third grade math workbook. You just go to the section in the third grade math program level and have your kiddo do that. How flexible is that? You have every level from kindergarten all the way to calculus at your fingertips for a very affordable price. Check out ctcmath.com. If you go over to the show notes and you click on the link, it will give you whatever the current discount or special they're offering Raising Lifelong Learners listeners. And you can check that out and take advantage of that. I so appreciate CTC. I know you're going to love it. And if you don't, they have a money-back guarantee. So you really do have nothing to lose. If you have any questions about CTC, you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer those questions. All right, let's get back to today's episode. All right, myth number 4, misconception number 4. Homeschooling will make anxiety or emotional struggles worse. Actually, the opposite is true. For neurodivergent kids, especially those with anxiety or sensory processing differences or trauma from past experiences, even past school experiences, traditional environments can be a constant source of stress. Homeschooling gives you the chance to create a rhythm that works for your child. You can build in breaks, you can build in movement, silence, nature time, sensory-friendly environments, and most important, safety. You build in a naturally safe environment for them to succeed and fail. When kids feel emotionally safe, their nervous systems calm down. They can access the higher level parts of their brain, the parts responsible for thinking, learning, connecting, being critical thinkers and learners, being creative thinkers and learners. In the Homeschool Advantage, I talk about how confidence grows when kids are allowed to succeed on their terms. And that confidence, it spills into every other part of their life. All right, last myth and misconception I'm going to talk about here. You have to do it alone. This one, I feel like it's less pervasive than it once was. However, I feel like families of neurodivergent kids feel this more keenly than others because we're afraid oftentimes to take our kids into the larger groups because of their struggles. We're afraid they're going to act out. We're afraid they're going to struggle. We're afraid they're going to not have friends. It makes my heart hurt. So many homeschooling parents feel isolated, especially when their kids don't fit that typical mold. And they struggle to find the support systems they need. When they ask about it in homeschooling Facebook groups, they get ostracized. Just let your kid be a kid. Oh, my kid would never behave that way. They don't know what they don't know, but we feel like we're failing even more because we don't have anything to compare it to when we're isolated in our own heads and in our own homes. I want you to know you're not alone. You're not. There are so many people out there who have kids just like yours, but they're not the ones out there on social media talking about all the great things their kids are doing because they're in the trenches struggling just like you are, just like I have struggled throughout my homeschooling. I'm in a good place right now, though we're making some changes coming in the coming year. Again, next year is going to be my 17th year. We're changing things up again because we have a different dynamic in our home with an adult child who's living here while he's working and another adult child, young adult child, going off to college for her freshman year. I have 2 that I'm homeschooling, a high schooler and a middle schooler. It's going to be very different, and we've needed to make some changes because the social aspects of our home and our homeschool are going to be different, and we need to get out more. We're joining a co-op for the first time in 6 years. We are trying different classes and different things. There are communities that you can find. If you can't find any in your general vicinity, I would encourage you to try because nothing can beat in real life connections. Even if you just find one family. There was a family we were super duper close with at our former co-op. And we connected with them and continued connecting with them all throughout the pandemic. They were like our little bubble. We went to their house once a week, or they came to our house once a week. We rotated. Our co-op folded and never resurrected, but we're still very good friends with that family. We still keep in touch, even though during the pandemic, their kids ended up going to a traditional school while mom started working. And we knew that we would lose touch if we didn't make an active attempt to keep in touch. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, is best friends with the oldest daughter of that family, and they both graduated this year, and they are still as close as they were. In fact, my daughter spent the night at her house last night and came home and said, I just forget how much better and more recharged I feel after spending time with Ella. In fact, Ella and Molly were on the podcast when they were really little, and they'll probably be embarrassed that I'm going to be reminding you of that episode because it was so many years ago, but it was so cute. I'll link it in the show notes. They're still friends 10, 11 years later. And while they're going off to college and they're going to separate colleges, they'll be about 2 hours apart from one another. I am completely confident that their friendship's going to continue. There's a whole community of families just like yours walking in this journey. It's exactly why I created the Learners Lab, actually, to bring us together, to remind us that there are people out there just like us. If you can't find them locally, at least you could find them online. I wanted to bring us together and learn and grow and support one another while we support our amazing, quirky, passionate kids. If you can't find in real life people, or if your kids just need more than they can get in person like mine, then I would encourage you to at least join the Family Connection Challenge that we're running in June, because you could get a free taste of what it's like to be in the lab and in a community with others just like you. I'd love it. Even if you're not a member of the main community, you can just join that free challenge. Head to the show notes, grab your spot. You're not meant to do this homeschooling thing alone, and you don't have to, even if your kids are outside the box, neurodivergent, or don't fit the normal molds. Okay, so what is the truth in all of this? Let's recap the truths that we've gone through and uncovered in this episode. Truth number one, you are your child's best teacher. You know them better than anyone else. Don't forget that. You're the best person to teach your kids. You're the best person to parent your kids. They're yours for a reason. Truth number two, homeschooling provides a safe, meaningful space for meaningful social opportunities on your child's terms. They are not going to be unsocialized, I promise you. Truth number three, academic growth is not a straight line, and that's okay. Homeschooling allows you to honor those zigzags and keep your kids learning at the pace they need to learn and learning what they want to learn and what they're passionate about. Truth number four, emotional safety is foundational to learning. Homeschooling makes that possible. You get to help your kids where they need to be helped. Anxiety, emotional struggles, sensory processing challenges, autism, ADHD, all of those things can be accommodated at home in a safe space so your kids learn to regulate themselves. And then truth number five, you are not alone in this. Community is everywhere. You might have to search for it a little bit, but it's there. Support is here for you. Your child is not broken. They are beautifully wired to experience the world in a unique and meaningful way. Homeschooling gives you the freedom to honor that, to honor your child, who they are, who they're meant to be, and to help them become the best versions of themselves. I hope this episode helped you bust a few myths and misconceptions wide open and reminded you of what you already know deep down. You've got this. You've got this. You're doing a beautiful job. You're the absolute perfect parent for your kid, and you can absolutely do this. Reach out if you need support. I promise you, I'm here for you. Let me know too. Just hit reply in an email, go to the show notes and leave a voicemail or send me a message. If there are myths I didn't bust that you want me to, or worries that you have that you'd love me to have an episode about. And then also, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CTC Math. We appreciate them so much. You can find them at ctcmath.com. Tell them I sent you. Let them know that you appreciate their support. And also check out the Family Connection Challenge. Sign up for free at the link in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love if you would share it with a friend. Leave a review. Tag me on Instagram at Colleen Kessler. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love for you to get the word out there so we can get more people listening so they know that they're not alone. Until next time, I'll be here, same place, same time next week with another episode. But until then, keep connecting with your kids. Keep trusting yourself. Keep raising those amazing kids. You've got this. I promise you. I'm so proud of all of the work that you're doing. You're a great parent. Do not forget that. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.